right, so let's start off by, first of all, tell us your name.
What's my name?
Mm-hmm.
Samuel Hardy Cole Jr.
And what year were you born, Hardy?
It was 8 o'clock Sunday morning, November the 30th, 1924, at Sarah Lee Memorial Hospital, Norfolk, Virginia.
In Norfolk, Virginia,
Yeah.
in 1924.
Right.
Tell us what you think your first memory was.
My first memory?
Yeah.
Actually, it's really strange that I guess it came to me in a dream that it was, it was all white, and then it kind of broke up into a pattern. And I realized I was looking at the ceiling.
Oh.
And that, to me, is my very first memory. But from there, actually, as far as seeing people and all, it was a little later. I think I don't know what would be the first. Actually, after that, but I mean, that is always to me. It was my first real thought.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So that to me tells me why, or one of the clues into how you're so dang smart still, and you remember so much, and you're so good with technology.
Yeah.
So what was your childhood like?
I guess I would assume it'd be normal. I guess my closest friend was my first cousin, Joe Deal. And I don't know how to describe it. It was happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what did you and Joe do for fun? Did you ride bikes or go to the park, or was there a creek nearby? What did you guys do to play?
I don't know that I could specify any particular thing that.
Were you guys wild? Were you wild, or were you?
Oh no. I guess I was calm. I wasn't wild at all, and it wasn't a big adventure though.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I guess I just accepted life as it was.
As it came. So when you and Joe played, did you like in the summertime, or was it how old did you grow up with him?
Yeah, well, we were very close. My mother's sister. That's how we were connected, and well, we had very close family life, and so we did a lot of things together, and I guess my most vivid memory was at the beach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys go to the beach a lot?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So would you and Joe just get up in the morning, you go to his house, pick him up, or he would come to your house, and then you would spend the day at the beach, or did you?
Well, it was, I don't know, it was kind of a mixture. Sometimes I would spend the night at his house, and sometimes he'd be at my house. And it was just, like I said, a close family. And then there were other family from my father's side that was in the same neighborhood at the beach. And of course we had, during the winter we lived in Norfolk, and we had, I guess, residences were further apart there. And actually Joe went through a different school system than I did, and because we were in different neighborhoods and all. Yeah. And he he and his family stayed with his grandfather's at his grandfather's house in Norfolk. It was in an entirely different section of the town. Yeah.
What were your mother and father like? What did your dad do for a living, and what did your mom do during the day?
Well, Dad had various careers. His father insisted he pass the bar exam and all, and join his firm and all. And as Dad said when he in the court, when he stood up, his mind sat down, so he gave that up, and he went into insurance and real estate in Virginia Beach. Yeah.
Was he successful with it?
Mostly, he had a partnership. The result of that kind of shaped my future. That he and his partner had a very unpleasant disagreement, and so that broke up that partnership. And it was actually a steady influence, in which it influenced my later life too. And and he went into his own business and in real estate, and as a result of that, there was a lot of development down in Virginia Beach at that time, and so he would build a house. We'd move in and get it all set up. Then we would go to another place, and he'd build another house. And so he was constantly in the construction business as well. And he was fairly successful.
And then your mom, or your mother, what was she like?
She was the sweetest thing in the world, and she grew up. Her mother died when she was very young, and so her sister was Mary Deal, Mary McCall Deal. She was more or less raised my mother, and Mamie was she was a teacher at one of the private schools, and that kind of helped form Joe's life, because he became very scholarly, and he succeeded much better than I did.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what did Joe succeed at?
He was a naval architect.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he actually was part of the team that, actually is the Enterprise, I think, was built, and I think he is involved in the nuclear propulsion side of it. And so also he after he left the Navy and all, that he went into shipyard in Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and he was head of shipyard down there, and till he retired.
Did you stay in touch and close with Joe as you guys grew up and grew older?
We did, up until the time that he was involved in his business from the Naval Reserve and all, and it was we were close, but we didn't stay in contact that much, because I had moved to Louisiana, and he was in Florida, and he traveled a lot, and if he could have, I encouraged him to stop and take a break and come by and see us, but then again, that wasn't as practical. Yeah.
At what age did you move to Louisiana?
Well, in Louisiana, I separated from the service. I was in the Air Force, where I ended up in Barksdale, and that was during the Korean conflict, and they had a reduction in force, and I had the option of staying in as permanent or going ahead and get out. And there was some circumstances that I always regretted that I didn't because of things that turned out. But I opted out, and so I settled in Shreveport. And of course, married a girl. Married my first wife, Henrietta Farrell, and my first project after leaving the service was trying to find a job.
No, yeah.
And I think my first, a friend, I think, put me onto it. That the first job there was the ordnance plant in New Orleans, and so I went into the transportation department there. And while there, I got to know the manager of one of the motor freight lines, and he convinced me to come with him. So I went to that, and and worked as rate clerk with the DC Hall. Then it was Brazil Motor Freight. And while there, I went to took night courses at Centenary College, and got at that time it did not require a college degree to sit and pass the CPA exam.
Oh.
But that was my goal at that time. I think principally because there was some options there at Brazil Freight Line that they needed some accounting, and I thought that was, I'd go through that and get it, but it took a while to do that, and by the time I was able to finish my college courses, they decided that they didn't need my services, and so I left them and went to a active CPA firm.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
And that got you started on that career.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, going back to my father's experience in the partnership, I was offered a partnership even without an investment into the firm, which kind of shaded some of the relationships there. But for some reason, I think I know the reason, but it was not understanding what my goals were. But at one point, I'd contacted a firm in Virginia that was looking for somebody to buy them out, and I contacted them, and I wrote them, and got a response back. And the senior partner in the firm, for some reason, saw. I think it was his secretary saw that it was from another firm, that was addressed to me. So he opened the mail, and we had at lunch. He brought the subject up, and while I didn't understand why he was so put out by that, I just let it slide. And at that point, because of the lack of trust and all, it occurred to me that maybe I need to leave and go somewhere else. But then, my father's experience, I decided no, consistent associations probably produce the best results.
Mm.
And there's a lot I had to take, and I just put up with it. And that really was, I guess, the security I feel now, that because of having done that and retired from that firm, and with my retirement buyout, that I was able to secure my retirement.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So sticking through and not.
Not letting emotion carry me into different paths that would probably not be as beneficial.
That's really interesting. Yeah, especially in today's mindset of business. Like, well, if you're not comfortable, go. But that's not how you build strong, lasting relationships that may not end up with the best outcome.
Well,
but things are different now in business.
Yeah.
There's not as much loyalty on the other side either.
Yeah, and people are moving around too fast and all like that.
General.
There's more internal feelings that drive those that, what am I getting out of it? Can I do better for me and all like that? Instead of, knuckling down and
doing the work. Let's go back a little bit, because
right.
you scooted way far.
Yeah,
You got all the way from starting a job to retired. Let's go back to, I'd love to talk more about your childhood, because not a lot of people know about it.
Right.
Especially thinking about, it's 2020, which is hard to say because it feels like we never thought we would get here, and we're all ready for it to be over. And you were born in 1924, so things were different then.
Much different.
So when you think back to those times, what's most compelling to you that's changed, whether it's people or transportation or telephones? I see you doodling around on your iPad, and you know what's funny? One day, I was, it was when you guys were at the party house, and you had swing music playing on your iPad, and I was like, oh, that's cool, he likes swing music. I was like, he grew up with swing music.
Well, the Big Bang era.
Yeah, so phenomenal. So the 1920s were very crazy, amazing, tumultuous time, and then you went through war, and there's all that story. So talk to us about all those things.
Well, in the late 20s, of course, I was growing up, and I remember my father's father, when we had a house on the main driveway between Norfolk and Virginia Beach, and it was rural, and my grandfather had a farm that was close to it, and we would walk from our house down the longer road back to the house they had on a point on the lake there. And I remember that we would go through, and Mother would stop and pick up one of the plants. It'd be a turnip or something like that, and we'd enjoy that all the walk back to the plant. And one of the things there, one of the stories that I like to relate about our relationship there was at breakfast one time at the farmhouse, and we were passing dishes around, and my grandfather had a plate of bacon and all, and he passed it to me, and I took something. He looked at me, passed me again, I took another one. That kept on. And that's one of the stories. And so for Christmas, the next Christmas after that, I got a pound of bacon.
Funny.
And well, that was one time period. And another story there was, Mother loved to tell it about I'd found a bird nest, and I'd seen people on the road selling whatever they had. And bird nest was there. I was standing by the road there. She loved to tell that story.
That's funny.
Yeah. Mhm. And well, and then too, her another favorite story she liked to say that I'd been outside and she had planted some flowers there. And came in and said, I said, "Mama, the pinonis is in bloom." That was one of her favorites.
Your
Yeah.
pinonis.
Yeah. But anyway, after that, we moved into Norfolk itself and had an apartment there. And my aunt, Elizabeth, who is a doctor, had a cottage at the Virginia Beach. It was small. Well, let me get back to that. That Virginia Beach at 101st Street at the time. It's now 61st Street. But it was there was a rail line going down from Norfolk to Virginia Beach down to Cape Henry. And it was Cole Station at 101st Street. And my grandfather had a big cottage on the waterfront behind the sand dunes. And then there were several houses on that. And eventually we had a cottage there too. Uncle John and Aunt Betty had one on the corner. And I forget. No, we weren't next to. There was somebody in between us, and then we were there, and then another. The Kearns, I remember that. I remember that they had a dwarf son. There was Eddie Kearns, and we would play hide and seek. And one of the things we would hide Eddie in the oven. Yeah, and well, another story. I remember that brought to mind that when Joe was down, they had another place further away, but he would stay with us, and they were doing some construction several blocks away. There, of course, is over. We didn't have the cement streets there at the time, and we'd go over the sand dunes to where there was truck, and there was actually some concrete foundations of what they wanted to initially it was for the Atlantic University, and there was big concrete foundations there, but they were building close to that, and we went over there, and Joe saw one of the contractor's cars, and it was a coupe, I think, and saw a box of cigars in there. So we had to steal a cigar, and so we got that. We went back in the place, the sand dunes there, and I guess he had some matches with him. Anyway, we lit it up, and I got sick as a dog, and I got punished for it because when we got back, and I was sick at the house and everything, and they found out what we did. Everybody was going to the place where the tourist club, they called it at the time, which was back away directly west of where the foundations were, and they would go up the hill and they would play tennis or something like that up there. But because of my misbehavior, I couldn't go, so I had to stay there, and that was my punishment for that. But anyway, we had a lot of fun down in Virginia, down that area, and Virginia Beach wasn't that well developed, and so it wasn't a lot of the cottages around. Eventually they started building up, and it got to be pretty crowded.
How old were you when you and Joe stole that cigar?
I guess we were in our Well, anywhere from 8 to 10 years old, something like that. We were young, yeah, but we were adventurous at that point, I guess. But yeah, and of course, uh, we spent a lot of time on the beach,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember several times going down there and staying a little bit longer than I should have, and I'd come back and be red and blistered on
Oh
my
yeah.
back, yeah. And I had one particular large one, and mother said, well, we should pop that for you. And evidently I was a little delirious from it. I said, well, I slept last night with it on that,
Oh.
but I hadn't. I'd got it that day, and
Mm-hmm.
so you had to do that. But I remember that always we would peel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'd get red and all. And by the end of the summer, we were brown as berries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
nobody was putting on slathers of sunblock back then.
No, actually, they were treating it after we got burned with vinegar.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm. And no, I think uh, there wasn't any sunburn lotion made at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Earliest childhood, I think, was at the house on Virginia Beach Boulevard. Things weren't as really built up at that time. This, of course, is back in the 20s. I guess it would be the late 20s when I started. But some things there that, well, I remember Christmas there, and we had the tree in the living room, and I lived up, I had my bedroom was upstairs. It was a two-story house there, stucco, and well, my cousin Joe would come down and stay with us for a while, and I would go into Norfolk and stay with his family for a while. They lived with his grandfather, who was Joseph T. Deal. He was, well, his father's Joseph Douglas Deal, and he was Joseph Douglas Deal Jr. But and I remember we the house in Norfolk. It was a three-story house on Stockley Gardens, and it was right on the corner of Olney Road in Stockley Gardens. It's right across from Catholic Church, and they remember with the meals that we had, the maid, a very large, slender woman named Delia, and she was very attentive to everything. And but we would well, we had a playroom upstairs. It was kind of a living room on the second floor as well as one on down floor. I remember on the downstairs entrance, they had a big bear rug with the head on it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and that was one of the things I do remember starkly. But from there, I think we moved into Norfolk, and we stayed. Let's see. I think that was when we stayed with Aunt Alice Thompson on Fairfax Road, 413 Fairfax. in her house, it was a stone house. Um, and I remember there being it was kind of an academy, I guess. It was a very large building. There was just a couple of spaces down the block from her, and it had an open area on the corner, and we would stay there. I remember that was when I first, I think, experienced asthma. And Alice had a lot of cats. And I'm allergic to cat dander, and I think that brought my asthma on. Let's see, what would be interesting there? Well, it wasn't too far from the place they called the Hague, which was a waterway that came into the kind of a park area that where all the Navy boats, the personnel from the Navy would come in, take the small boats, and they'd come in there and they'd drop them off there. I mean, some of the officers and the Hague around the area. Well, actually, that's where the hospital was, where I was born. And well, one of the things that, let's see, I think when we were down at Virginia Beach Boulevard, that's when Mary Ellen, was about 6 years old, and they discovered that she had diabetes. And so mother, my aunt Elizabeth, who was a doctor, had them, mother and Mary Ellen, go up to Charlottesville, where the college was, and they went her through, did some tests, and well, I don't know all that they did for it, but anyway, they had to stay up there for several weeks, and that was, I had started school, I believe, at that time, and I was going to, I think, my first public school was grammar school, was Walter T. Heron School, and when Mother and Mary Ellen came back, I think then we moved to a place closer to where the school was, and I think Mary Ellen went there as well as I. And one thing that remarkable thing that at that age, I guess maybe it wasn't that remarkable, but they jumped me from the first grade to it's the second grade to the third grade. And that was quite a shocking experience for me. But that was the only academic achievement I have ever acquired. And why that, I don't know. But anyway, that's far from my memory. But we lived there, and it was on I forget what the street was, but I do remember that my uncle and his family, my closest girl cousin, they're about my same age, well, she's maybe 4 months older than I. They lived, it was, I think it was maybe 2 blocks away. I remember that was on Spotswood Avenue. And um, they, something flashed through my mind there. But anyway, we stayed there at an apartment there until I was in the. I think I had passed the 5th grade and going into the 6th, and that was when Dad changed careers, and we moved to Virginia Beach, and that's when that fall I started attending Oceana School, which was a grammar school as well as a high school combination, and we were that's as I remember, we had a cottage on 55th Street in Virginia Beach, and that's when we caught the rail bus into Oceana for the to go to school. And let's see, I joined the Boy Scouts, and the scoutmaster was forget his first name, but he was Casey. It was Hugh Lynn Casey was the scoutmaster, and his father was I think Edgar Casey, who was the kind of a, I don't know, savant or something. Anyway, he was the one that would go into trances, and he would predict or tell something. Well, it was one particular case where a woman had a particular medicine that she needed to have to cure, and he told her where it was. The particular medicine bottle was in this particular pharmacy on a certain shelf in there, and there it was when she found it and everything. And a lot of things he would tell about the future and all that he would see, and he would possibly somebody would give him maybe a handkerchief somebody had, and he would tell them all about it, and they would say that this person is ill or something, and he would give them he'd tell them all about it, what was wrong with them, and how to cure it, and so it was quite amazing. I mean, he's got there's a whole book on what he did, and he was Hugh Lynn, who was our scout, as I said, scoutmaster, one time took us to visit with him, and the only thing I remember particularly about that visit was he had a parrot that he had, and it was quite an experience. Of course, he didn't perform anything for the troop and all like that. Didn't give us any demonstration, but we did get to meet him, and they lived on Virginia Beach, close to the Catholic Church there.
You said
And
Edgar Casey? It was Edgar Casey or his dad?
Edgar Casey, yeah. And continue with the scout thing that we did. Well, we had merit badges we'd have to win, and I do remember one time we were out on a camping, and for some reason, I don't know why, I don't know whether I elected to do it or whether they appointed me, but I was cooking steaks, and I got my cooking merit badge for that. Yeah, and well, we had some good times in the woods there, and learning how to take care of ourselves and all. But and then I, of course, I got to be I think it was first class. I didn't get too far above that. I was not that progressive, and well, I'm proud of my grandson who got to be an Eagle Scout. So, but I didn't get that far in it. And of course, now living at the beach, we of course the summertime we had the beach. We were one block off the beach. We had this highway between us, and then on the one block down to the sand dunes, and then the beach. And of course, we'd walk down to the beach, and I remember just enjoying the sunshine, laying back on the beach and closing my eyes and feeling the warmth of the sun and all. It was real nice. And of course, we would be rather adventurous with the surf and all. There'd be a storm, there was a northeast storm that would come up and would really kick up the surf and all, and we'd get out in it. And I remember going in the month of November, and it was very cold, and we'd get in there, and as we got in the edge of the water there, the water over our feet, we'd feel the feet getting hurt. They were getting cold, but we'd get in, and once we got in, it was comfortable. But when we got out and the wind hit us and everything, that's when it was really bad. But that was some of the stuff we fooled around with. But one thing that they were building cottages down there, and they're not directly across from us, but diagonally across from us. They had a big area there that they were building a club, a beach club, which is called a surf club. Had what they call the Cavalier Beach Club. Is down below the Cavalier Hotel, which is up on a hill down there. But because they were building this so close to us, and of course when they would have a dance floor, and that's where all the big bands came. And because we were so close, they didn't want us complaining about it, so it gave us free membership to it. And we really enjoyed the surf club, particularly, well, during the summer on the weekends, they'd have tea dances in the Sunday afternoon.
How old were you then?
I think I was about 12. That was the start of it, but we stayed there for quite a while, and so by the time I was 16, we were really enjoying it. That's when we started learning the jitterbug, and while we didn't have any particular girlfriends, there was a group of us that went there, and all of us, kind of socialized there. And we got to know the lifeguards in front of there, and they had the surfboards, which then weren't the fiberplastic ones they have nowadays. They were mahogany, and they were heavy. Mm-hmm. And of course we would get those out and try to ride the waves with them and all. And we had quite a, that's how I got to be a beach bum. But, and it carried over. But,
were there any bands that you remember?
Down there was Jimmy Dorsey played at the Cavalier Beach Club, and Tommy Dorsey his band played at the Surf Club. And let's see, we also had Gene Krupa. Several of the others, it would come up in my mind occasionally, I guess, but I don't remember it particularly now. But anyway, we would have those. Well, during the week too, they would have some during the summertime, and we always enjoyed that. We well, they had cabanas on the dunes there, and of course we never used one of those. But that's when the tourists would come down, and they would rent a cabana, and well, we had a lot of our friends from Norfolk would come down, and we would take them to the tea dances and all. And they would have some, famous people come in and all. But there's one couple there that of our age that were fairly talented in jitterbugging and all, and they were Showtime people, and they were offered an opportunity to go to New York, and which I think they did, and all. But that was showed you that it was quite a thing for us down there. And let's see. Later on, while I was still in high school, we, I don't know, Dad's situation changed or what, but anyway, we moved just beyond Oceana, and it was in a brick house that on the highway, and I was still going to the high school, and I graduated while we were there, I believe. And later, we moved back to Virginia Beach in my Aunt Elizabeth's cottage, and we stayed there, and that was where I was living when I was drafted. And of course went into the Army Air Corps, radio school, then aviation cadets, and graduated. Well, I had to select a particular course. They told us when we went, after I went to St. John's College in Minnesota, they sent us out to Santa Ana, California for classification. Well, they told us then that the pilot pipeline was full. They had all the pilots they could train, and so we had to pick one of the other crew spots, and I didn't know too much about bombardiering, but I thought maybe navigation would be my thing, which that I selected, and then went to Hondo, Texas for navigation training, and that's where I graduated and got my commission as a second lieutenant. And while I wasn't assigned to a crew from there, they, it may have been a couple of others with me, but we were sent to Boca Raton, Florida for radar school. And they had we had to get a secret classification, in order to go to this radar school, because it was a highly secret radar that they were doing. What it added is higher definition than most other radar sets at the time. They were using them for navigation and all. But this is a bombing particular radar. And so I went through the school there, and there where I experienced my debilitating right ear when all the flights are up and down, and the pressure in it there. And I went to the dispensary there and told the doctor it felt like somebody slamming up against my head with a 2x4, because it boom, boom, you know. And they went in, took a bunch of, looked like tobacco leaves out of my ear. This is wax that had dried in there. And I was in the hospital for a while there, and feeding myself with drugs and all that sort of stuff. And it finally cleared up, and I was back on flight status. And then I think we were sent to Randolph in San Antonio for some more classification and all. And that was like a vacation. I think we spent about 3 months there, and most of the time was on the golf course. We'd report in the morning at roll call, then we'd take off for the golf course. But finally, they assigned us to a bombing squadron. Of course, at that time, they were getting these planes ready. They were ones that they took all the gun turrets out of it, except for the tail. And so they, you know, it reduced the weight of the plane, so we carry heavier loads. And of course, we were designed for the just flying at night. And so they sent me to Harvard, Nebraska, and joined my crew there. And I don't know, I got crosswise with my pilot, or the aircraft commander. And while I did a good job, we never did get on. He didn't give me a good review. So, but anyway, and that didn't happen until we got over to Guam. But after we had several weeks there training, and then they were getting to send us over. Went to Marshfield in California, and outside of San Francisco. And then we flew to Hawaii, stayed there a day or two, and then we went on, flew to Guam, and we were at the Northwest Field there. Initially, they had these barracks that were completed, but they made them on the enlisted area. And of course, the officers were during the war, we were in tents and sleeping on cots in tents and all. And then after the war, we helped build our own barracks, and we stayed there. We were maybe, I guess, 3 months at the end of the war when we were operational. But I think felt like we helped in some way to end the war, because the bombing was the oil refineries, and we were fairly successful. But of course, we didn't get a lot of attention because we weren't that long in the area and all. That it didn't attract, and for some reason, the B-29 was not that notable. I mean, even though it was a super fort, um, when they think about the wartime planes, they're thinking more of the fighters and the lighter bombers, the B-17, because that was a big thing in Europe, and of course that was more noteworthy and all. And the lighter bombers, the B-24s, the B-25s, and they just, I mean, there's more noteworthy, I guess. But we were there, but and so I came back from Guam. It was a converted Italian liner, and it was packed with troops, and we had our bunks in one of the salons. And one particular thing I remember about that trip back was they had an earthquake up in Alaska, and as a result there was a tidal wave that spread out, and I remember middle of the night we ran into it, and it was up and down. I remember my feet, we had these pipe rack cots with canvas thing and with the rope stringing, and my feet were down, and I was standing on the bottom rack pipe. The ship went up like that and then came down, and so, I mean, that was about the most memorable thing on that trip back home. But we got back, we landed in San Francisco, and stayed there till all our luggage and everything caught up with us. And then they sent us, you know, I don't remember whether they flew or they rode the train. I can imagine we rode the train from San Francisco to Fayetteville, North Carolina, and Fort Bragg, and that's where I was separated. And then I think I took a train back to Norfolk, and they picked me up there and took me home. And let's see, I stayed in the reserve, and let's see. What was that? Trying to think what I was doing in that time. Oh, yeah. My godfather, Max Simmons, was looking out for me and found a job opening, and it was with the Second Army Transportation as a civil service. Had to pass the civil service exam, and and what they were doing, they were handling these ships. They were loading coal and corn and a lot of stuff like going to Japan. And so they put put me in the position of checking the cargoes, preparing the manifest, and getting the captain to sign off of it when they get ready to sail. And I had two experiences there. One, we had a coal uh, cargo, and getting down in the cargo in the bays there, and I was in coveralls, but man, it was dirty,
Mm-hmm.
and coal dust everywhere and everything. So, the other one was we'd loaded up uh, it was a Russian ship, I believe, and and when I went aboard to get the manifest signed and everything, they invited me to lunch and all, and very courteous and all. But then they started talking about, I guess, politics or something, and I expressed my disinterest in that discussion, and I said, well, I just feel like the individuals there are not involved in all that heavy stuff. That they were just trying to, live their life and weren't interested. Well, they decided that maybe I wasn't one that ought to be discussing things with them, and they ushered me off. But anyway, I got the job covered. Oh, and another thing, I had one. Um, I guess it was a coal ship going to Japan, and it had pulled away from the dock, and I took a boat out to it and climbed on, and the captain didn't have. He was, well, it wasn't in his cabin when I was getting him, so, and so I offered him my pen so he could sign it. Well, I forgot to take my pen, and so my pen went to Japan. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, and of course I had offices in Norfolk, and um, I don't know how I got some of this stuff. I don't know how it started, but anyway, I was my uncle had convinced me, Joe's father, that I should the job came open as a postmaster at Virginia Beach, and so I, so go ahead and apply for it. It's just a political job and all, and so I had a pretty good organization going out and get, but there's one who was kind of a high up in the Democratic Party in that area, and he was father of one of my girlfriends. But when I, approached him, I said, good luck. So, but anyway, I got quite a bit there, and apparently impressed some of them because I was working at the Second Army Transportation, uh, and I was making about, which meant about $50 a week, which wasn't bad at that time. And so they offered me to come into the party there and work with them, and all, $50 a week. So it wouldn't have been any advancement at all if I'd had aspired to any political activity. I should have gone there, but I wasn't that interested, and so I had to pass that up. But anyway, I had that offer, and of course it was while I was there at the working for the Second Army that I was recalled into service for the Korean conflict. And so we had to go over I guess it was Langley Field, I think, where we first called in, and there my cousin, who was sergeant over there, and he was in the, I think he was working in the tower at the field there and all. But anyway, as I got to, be with him and meet his son, and his son Jimmy, and then from there, I think I went back to Randolph. And then we were assigned crews from Randolph, and then I went up to Topeka, Kansas. And got my crew there. And we were doing some training while we were there, and then as the whole group was getting ready to move, going overseas, they gave us overseas shots. And I guess it was fortunate that we were not going overseas with that group, which was going to Korea, or maybe to Japan to do the bombing over Korea. But getting overseas shots, that's when the corpsman didn't change needles, and I got a used needle and got hepatitis. And I spent a long, hot summer in the nice air-conditioned hospital. Mm-hmm. It took me a while to get over and there was no medication they gave me, but I ate a lot of fruit, and it was all right. Hot and cold running nurses, and just spending my days.
What did it feel like?
Well, the reason I really went in complained about it was that I was at the bar, and I guess it might have been a martini I was drinking, and it just, didn't taste good. And so the guys that I was with, I said, well, let's go get a steak. And so we went to get a steak. I took one bite of that. That was it. I just didn't have any appetite at all. Nothing tasted good. And I didn't have any ill feelings at all, but of course my eyes were all yellow and I was turning yellow. So I wasn't looking good to be with people. And so they put me in the hospital and ran some tests, and while I was there, I think every day they'd come in and run dye in one arm and come in the other arm, see how that the liver had treated that, and it was it's what they call the Icteric Index, I think, or whatever that meant. And so eventually, well, they asked me seriously, said, we'd like to do a biopsy on your liver. I said, well, that's going to be entering in there, going through tissue and muscle and all that. I don't think I want it. Get your ass down to Barksdale. Okay. Oh, and I had a car at the time. When I'd been called back, I drove. Where was it? I had to go to North Carolina, pick up one of my crew members, and went St. Louis, I thought. That's a little hazy there, but from there we went down to Randolph, and and so when I was in the hospital, my crew was going down to Barksdale, and so I had the navigator take my car and go down, because I knew I was going to fly down, and so my car was already at Barksdale when I went down. And so I got there, and there was no room in the bachelor officers' quarters. So I had to live in a motel until I got with some people there, and then there was a couple that had an apartment. There's 2 bedrooms and everything, and so I moved in with them, and that worked out pretty good. Um, and so while we were at Barksdale, we went into a lot of training on the. Apparently, I did pretty good because they selected me to go to the bombing and navigation competition, and but maybe maybe I still wasn't mature enough, but situation occurred during the competition. We had a target in Oklahoma City, and on the bombing run, well, the navigator would take us to the initial point, then I'd take from this point into the target. Well, there was a jet stream there or something, but we had terrific drift, which I didn't quite catch. And I kept turning and turning to try to get into the line up on the target. And of course, we missed it by a mile, I think. But anyway, that was it as far as we were in the competition. But anyway, we came back. We experienced that, and then we went over to North Africa. I don't know why, but went over to Morocco. You're out in the desert. I guess it's just part of the global presence that they were trying to establish. And we stayed there several weeks, and we would go into Rabat for take time off. And we had some experiences there that were pretty funny, but we finally got returned to the States. We stopped at the Azores going over. I don't think we stopped at the Azores going back, but we stopped at Bermuda. And one thing there, I remember we went to the Oscars Club, and had slot machines, and those were not rigged, and they paid off pretty good. But while we were there, I think it was the Squadron Commander's plane. They were transferring fuel, and something sparked, and that plane caught fire in Bermuda, and it was quite a deal, anyway. But we came back and landed at Barksdale back, and it wasn't long after that we had to accompany the Squadron Commander to, well, I guess it was Marchfield again, and where he was going under court-martial, or under a review anyway. I don't know if it was court-martial or not, but anyway, of course, he was the commander, and that's what happened under his rule. But we went out there. We had to stay there a while, and I remember going to the mess hall. They had fried chicken, and so it was kind of greasy. So I was using my knife and fork on it to cut it up, and the officer in the mess, they came home and said, "You don't do that. You pick it over with your fingers and eat it like a Southern boy." But anyway, we came back from that, and we had several missions around different places and all usual operations. And I remember one time that I had parked my car. While I was there, I traded my car in and got a DeSoto, which they don't make anymore. And I thought we made it don't think he made many after that. But anyway, it was a pretty good car. I parked it and didn't realize it was parked right under a drain. And that it had one hell of a downpour. And my car almost floated out of there, but it got soaked inside, and I had to take it to the dealership and have them do it. But anyway, the Korean War ended, and so they gave us an option. You could either stay in, sign up permanent, or you could go ahead and get out. Well, I was going with my first wife at the time and dating her, and decided, well, maybe I'll settle in Shreveport. And so I opted out at that time. And as I found out after I'd gotten out that the promotion list came out and I missed my promotion. But anyway, and so that's when I married Henrietta Farrell. And I was looking for a job, and a friend of mine was working at the ordnance plant, I believe, and you gonna eat that?
No,
Why not?
it was on the ground.
That's
You can
all
still
right.
eat
You can eat it. It won't hurt you.
That's what's not right.
Oh, no.
It's not quite ripe. Yeah.
Dad wants you to put your helmet on when you ride.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so I got a job at the ordnance plant and was in the transportation department. And as I think I told you, I'm one of the terminal managers of truck lines. Thought I was doing a good job, and so he wanted to hire me. And I could see that it would probably be area of more advancement than it would be at the ordnance plant. And so I went to the truck line, and there was, as I think I told you, that there was put in my mind that it was a good idea to go to back get my college courses and pass the CPA exam. Well, I did that, and I was steered towards this one firm that was growing, and so I went with them, and I was offered a partnership without any investment at all. And so I've learned the public accounting business, and let's see. Oh, and one particular client was a man. He was in his late 80s or early 90s, and he was a petroleum geologist, and we got quite friendly, and so I started doing his work, and when a firm broke up, oh no, actually I just retired from. Oh, that's when I married my second wife. She got cancer, and when she was so ill, I decided that even though I was close to normal retirement, I'd go and take early retirement and take care of her. And so, not wishing to totally give up on my profession, I got office in the same building, but a different floor, and I was doing work for this elderly client, and he was my primary client anyway, and he had a philosophy that if you ever stop investing in new ventures, that he would go broke. So he was continually investing in new oil drilling and things, and he was a real good geologist, and matter of fact, had a good reputation throughout the industry. And while I was in my office there, in that building, they started raising the rents, and my client said, well, he had an extra room in his suite, and so I set up office in his suite. And more or less, kind of, I guess, took on a overseeing of his business and all. Not getting involved in any of the geology, of course, but there was a lot of money flowing around, and it had to account for it. And then he got to where he wasn't doing too well physically and all. As a matter of fact, he was fond of camellias, and he had this. Well, there's a thing in the group that there's a society of camellia society, had what they call the gerabolic acid or something. They call it jib. Anyway, he'd take a little drop and drop it on the bud for it, and it would come out in beautiful big things. And so he was doing that, and at his advanced age, he was on a ladder up doing that, and he fell, and he fractured his arm. Didn't want the complete break, but he fractured it, and that really caused, at his age, it was really disability, and so he would mostly be in the office in his coveralls, and of course, once in a while we'd get him. We had another fellow who was a geologist that had an office in his suite as well. He was an independent, but and he would help him dress and all. Kind of took care of him and everything. So it was fairly close. And so one time they decided that he would close his office because he was getting to where he wasn't making anything, and we'd cleared up all his debts, and he was willing to stay at home, so we closed his office, and as a result, because his relatives, all in Oklahoma, hadn't seen him in 10 years and all, and we asked him, his primary attorney had died before he died, he had suggested that he redo his will. And since these people weren't that close and all like that, take care of the people he knew. So we did go ahead and redo his will, which I don't know how the word got out, but it did. And his relatives in Oklahoma up in arms, you know, because they were going to take, he was supposed to get all his money. He didn't really have that much money. But anyway, of course, he had a nice big house, and he had some money. I mean, it wouldn't impress me today, but anyway, so they thought they were really being cheated out of everything. So, okay, I said, well, they came down and they had him declared incompetent and all this, and they were taking over his management of his accounts. Okay, by me, you go ahead. But yeah, that, and then of course I moved out and did all my stuff from the house, but well, I think primarily at that time we were, there were 4 couples, all at St. Mark's. Let's see, there was, well, actually it's 5 couples. There's a retired priest and his wife was one of them, but anyway, there were 4 couples, 8 of us, that really were a group. And they were all at St. Mark's, and a couple of them were in the bell ringing with us, bell group, and oh, and one was my doctor and his wife, you know, and he was the one that told me I had a little spell at choir one time, and I went in the lounge and lay down for a while. He came in and said, "Hang in there." You know, that's my doctor. He won't help him. But anyway, that's been a philosophy ever since. My doctor says, "Hang in there," and that's what I'm going to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, we were a pretty close group, and we still are, because we're talking about having another reunion. And Rose suggested to come down here again. Matter of fact, when the first New Year's that we were here, they all came down and we had New Year's together. Yeah. And so we're talking about that again. And but we moved to Texas. Another couple moved to North Carolina. Well, my doctor, his wife, and one couple still in Shreveport. Of course, the priest and his wife are down in Houston. And well, last time, anytime Rose goes to Houston for Ring the Bells, she stays with them. And so here we are today.